Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And welcome to Justice Here TV. Oh, it's me, squished over on the side. That may be appropriate. That may be all the Michael Bryant you need. That little chunk over on the side. Hey, good to have you along. As you can tell, what's missing? Something's missing. Oh yeah, LKB. She's on a very special medical assignment, but she will be joining a little bit later on in the hour. So we're going to muddle along until she gets here. Don't forget Doug Weinstein coming up. He is going to talk to us about his take on the Karen Read case, and more specifically, the motion for a mistrial with prejudice that was, that motion denied. Did you hear at the end of today's proceedings, and it was a short day, gave me time to come zooming home to the home studio, the home office. I've missed the place. It's been a while since I've been here. And just before they broke for the day, one of the defense team brought up that there was a motion that had yet to be decided. And Judge Cannoni said, denied. No, not even identifying what the motion was on the record, not even allowing any discussion, just, denied. We can also assume the other two motions that were floating about involving Ellington's testimony. Remember, this is the cell phone guy. Did a report in March. I think it was March 3rd. That doesn't seem to be the subject of dispute, but he did another supplemental report on the 1st of June. The thrust of which is these law enforcement dudes screwed up in how they handled the cell phones, how they manipulated them, how they recovered data from them. It was a supplemental report. Who's done a supplemental report in the middle of trial? Who could possibly think that's appropriate? The Commonwealth did that with Welcher. So anyway, those we assume were just summarily denied because there hasn't been any further discussion on that one or another mutual discovery motion that was made by the prosecution. Again, we can assume those were denied because they weren't discussed in any particular way. So today, even though I have today, very interesting testimony for the defense team as they put on Brian Lofgren. I'm so glad that he goes by Lucky because there are just too damn many Brians in this case. So he came on first, and then the last witness of the day was Karina Kolakithis. I think that's pretty close. She is, and we're going to do this kind of backwards because I want to show the video of Lucky and some of his testimony. And we also have a microdots depiction, animation of what it's believed he saw that night. Remember, Lucky was the snowplow driver. But first, Karina Kolakithis, she's with Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Read that night at the Waterfall Bar. In fact, she didn't want to go. Her husband basically gets her out there kicking and screaming, "I don't want to go." Kids say, "Mom, go. You don't ever do anything." She goes, and she's really, putting up with it, tolerating, the evening. Starts to leave, and then sees Karen Read and John O'Keefe come in and says, "Oh, great, I love Karen." And they're chatting away really till the evening ends at about 12 when people start to leave. And as they leave, remember, it's the three of them together: Karen Read, Officer John O'Keefe, and Karina Kolakithis. Karina Kolakithis says, you notice that once I learned how to say her name, I'm just repeating it over and over again because I'm so proud of myself. She says she saw Karen Read give a little peck on the cheek to Officer John O'Keefe. Sounds like a little thing, right? But remember, in the context of all the hoopla from the Commonwealth, that this was a fight brewing, right? And that Karen Read culminated that fight by bumping into, running over, brushing up against Officer John O'Keefe, leading to his ultimate death. So that little nugget obviously punches a hole in that whole theory. And she was the only one there. Those three were together. So only Karen Read, she, and Officer John O'Keefe would have been privy to that information. Here's what's important that we didn't hear from this witness, okay? She apparently heard from Jen McCabe that there was a ring video that proved Karen Read ran over, bumped into, knocked down Officer John O'Keefe. Well, we know that's a lie. It's a lie. But in theory, she was telling Ms. Kolakithis that this existed to get her to turn on Karen. Obviously, she's close with Karen. She enjoyed her company that night, and remains effectively in the Karen Reed camp. So Jen McCabe wants to use this bit of information that she's totally made up to sway Ms. Kolakithis' allegiance. That didn't come in. The court did not allow that to come in. You see lies there? Yeah, lies. It just wasn't brought in. There is an argument that can be made that without the proper foundation, it should not go in. Obviously, there is major hearsay involved because it's Jen McCabe saying it. And it's very unusual to use another witness's statement against them, unless they're a party opponent, to get around the hearsay, right? Obviously, it wasn't an exclamation, wasn't a blurted statement, an excited utterance, as it's called in the law. It was kind of a calculated conversation that she had. Might have been interesting if that came up when Jen McCabe was testifying, but it did not. So I admit there's an argument that it should not have come in, and it did not come in. So the jury doesn't know about that little maneuvering that was clearly underway by Jen McCabe to turn this witness. So all we get from her and all the jury gets is that, boy, they had a great relationship right up to the moment they were leaving that bar with a little kiss on the cheek, and everybody started off in their own direction. And of course, we know what happened after that. Well, actually, we're not so sure what happened after that, but it didn't end well for Officer John O'Keefe. So anyway, a great witness. I think people would agree she came off perfectly fine. No real suggestions that she was motivated to lie in any way. I think if I look at my notes here from the cross-examination, which was minimal, which I think was probably smart. In fact, the only question I even wrote down from Hank Brennan when he did cross was, they at the Waterfall Bar that night, everybody was in a good mood, right? Yeah, as a matter of fact, they were. I'm not quite sure how that helped the Commonwealth. Anyway, so she was the last witness of the day. They wrapped it up. They'll go back on Friday. Nothing tomorrow. Nothing at all tomorrow. We think it's a scheduling thing, but Karen Reed, who of course is now kind of the spokesperson for the defense since the gag order is in place, told us outside the courtroom that Tuesday-ish is kind of the guesstimate as to when the defense will end their case. So even if you throw an extra day in there, because really I think what we're looking at is a lot of expert testimony going forward. So even if you throw in an extra day, I think we're looking at the rebuttal case beginning the end of next week, Thursday, perhaps. And then we know that's maybe a week. Again, it all depends on the scope and nature of some of the cross-examination of these different witnesses. Cross-examination by the Commonwealth as the defense wraps up, cross-examination by the defense for the Commonwealth rebuttal witnesses. But I would not be shocked to see this in the hands of the jury a week from next Monday or Tuesday. A week from next Monday or Tuesday. So I think that's a little bit just a touch ahead of schedule. So that's where that lies. Let's do this while we're waiting for Doug to come on. Let's just dip into a little bit of the testimony of Lucky, who universally has been lauded as just an honest dude. And as I was talking to Aiden outside the courthouse, and if you get a chance when we're done, go to our library and you'll see that it was kind of a hodgepodge of interviews. He came out, talked to the gathering, then I cornered him for a couple of things talking about Lucky. Then the Karen Reed scrum, and then even Esty was there, who's a major supporter of Karen Reed. We chatted for a minute outside the courthouse, primarily about the testimony of the day and Lucky in particular. So I think this is again one of those situations where we're so excited that somebody seems to be missed. It just seems a little bit odd. Well, I just heard a clunk. I don't want to get into this if Doug has just popped on. So let me search. Let me search. There he is. I'm not going to leave him waiting. Then we'll hold off on the Lucky stuff until after Doug and I get done. And again, Linda should be joining at some point in the next few minutes or so. You know him, you love him from YSL fame, and we're going to get an update on Diamante Kendrick as well, his client who he got off in that YSL case, scot-free, acquittal, the only one who got a true acquittal in that case. Amazing. There he is, Doug Weinstein. How you doing, man?
It's good to see you. Hey, you want me to rotate my phone as
Okay,
I pop on?
please do.
Let's see what happens.
Hey,
Is that better? Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's perfect.
Greetings from the
Yeah.
Atlanta airport.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite places to broadcast. Where are you going, or where are you from? What's the deal?
First of all, I have to say that I resent saying that I popped on. I have never popped on to anything,
Well,
anyone, any place. Um, I'm heading to Orlando. I actually was in Orlando yesterday, and
what's
a federal judge at 3 p.m. gave me a command performance in Athens, Georgia at 10 a.m. So
did that just come
yeah,
up?
partially my fault, maybe.
Okay, so
Eh,
you're doing some fun time, vacation time down in Orlando. Had to take a break from that to do some work with the federal judge.
I did, but he was
Okay.
very kind, so he just needed to vent his spleen for a little bit.
All right. It's okay though. Went all right.
All's good.
Okay, good. So before we get into what's up with the Karen Reed case, and I know you're not, as steeped in it as a lot of
I
our
am not.
viewers are, but that's okay. It's nice to get a little bit of an objective look because sometimes you're deep down the rabbit hole here. Let's talk about what's the latest with Diamante Kendrick, your erstwhile client.
So Mr. Kendrick, he's been laying down tracks. I think he's going to be dropping some tracks and videos soon. I shot a video with him about a month ago that
Really?
I know. Yeah. I
Okay.
play myself.
Should I look for that? Where would I find that?
It hasn't been dropped yet.
Okay.
But I can't do any spoilers about it. But I think it's
Okay.
going to drop pretty soon. But he did a big interview yesterday, so I think it's going to drop soon. So he is doing great. He's recording a lot of those lyrics that he spent 2.5 years writing. So
Yeah.
I'm glad he will get some feedback and be able to put those out in the public. And he's doing great. He's doing great. It's hard to readjust after you've been in for a few
Can't
years,
imagine.
but he is doing really well. His mom's doing great. I talk to his mom probably more than I talk to him, but we speak a couple of times a week, and I talk to his mom, I don't know, every other day.
Well, tell her I'm still looking for her because she promised she would come on, and then we kind of lost touch. So
Okay.
please pass along our contact info. Remind her that she promised me, and
I will
she
mention that.
Okay, all right.
If you feel like you're capable of handling her,
No, I know better than that. I can't even handle Linda Kenny Bodden. Are you kidding me? So
did you hear the other YSL news while we're here?
Oh, what?
This was some big news this week. Demise McMullen pled out to conspiracy RICO. He was the last one on trial for I don't know what words I can say on your show, the unaliving of Donovan Thomas.
Okay, gotcha.
He was the last remaining defendant, and they dropped that unaliving charge, and he pled out to a lesser offense. So of all of the people charged with the being responsible for the death of Mr. Thomas, no one was convicted for that. So
Crazy, isn't it?
more examples of the giant waste of time that Fonnie Willis and our wonderful DA's office has. Actually, I don't want to blame the whole DA's office. I like them. Another example of the terrible job that Madam DA Fonnie Willis has done.
Yeah, well, we call on her quite often when I talk about various topics. She just, without even any notice, she'll just pop.
Typical man.
Just like, I can't control her.
I thought she only appeared to talk to Mark Winnie, but there she is talking to you too. So there you go.
Yep, that's her. Somebody had just made a note here, and of course I lost it, but I think I can synthesize it. They said they miss objections with law from your work because in this case there will be no stating the grounds for any objection. It's just pick from column A, column B, whatever you want.
And you've heard my thoughts on that, which is I don't know how the judge decides to rule on those things. And I have zero idea how any appellate court makes decisions based on her rulings, since no one knows the basis for her ruling. So I find it baffling. And I understand that is not the only court that occurs in, but I still find it baffling that she does that.
I mean, for appellate purposes, it's a nightmare. But some might suggest, and thanks, Joey Kane, appreciate it, buddy. Gifting one Justice Her TV membership. Some people might suggest it's a little CYA on her part because she doesn't really have to, analyze anything specifically. If she just says, "I'll allow it," or sustained.
That's the first time I've heard that theory, and it actually makes a huge amount of sense when you think about the deference that the appellate courts give to trial judges. So I would bet you anything that in Massachusetts, the standard is that if you're not sure the basis for a judge either sustaining and overruling an objection, then there's deference that the trial court picked the right rule to use in that instance, or that whatever counsel failed to, what I don't know. I'm sure because of deference, that may be one reason she does it.
Yep, I think that's it. I'm not suggesting she doesn't have the legal brain power to actually know what it is, but I think the protective nature of, well, I don't know what your objection's based on. You won't know what my ruling is based on. It's a win-win, except
Yeah.
if you're going to an appeal and you have to itemize the things that were ruled against that should have been ruled for. Anyway, those are the least of the problems with that case. So before we get into that, and a big motion that was made for new trial with prejudice, or a mistrial with prejudice,
Yeah.
let's talk about your new trial coming up, because we keep forgetting the name of it. It's August 7th. I think I remember the date
Yeah.
more than
it's
anything else.
It's State v. Cassotis in Liberty County,
Cassotis.
Georgia, Kassotis,
Okay.
who is a retired lieutenant commander, wrongfully accused of doing away with his wife
Okay.
and
Gotcha.
spreading her about a couple of counties.
Oh.
So that it's rather salacious, which is why I think that it's going to get so much news coverage.
And Liberty County, what town is it going to be in?
You ready?
Liberty? Yes. What?
Hinesville.
Hinesville?
It's just outside Savannah.
Heinz like
mil-
the ketchup, or Heinz like Hines?
Hines.
Okay.
It's just outside Savannah. It's where her body was found.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Or
Savannah is lovely.
most of it. Savannah is lovely. So I will be. I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to commute or stay in Hinesville for a month.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. How far is it if you do just a commute? Was that a couple hours each way?
No. From Savannah, it's 45 minutes each way.
Oh, if you stay in Savannah, yeah.
Yeah. If I stay in Savannah, it's 45 minutes. But we have Judge Rose, who's a rather senior, very talented judge. And it is the Superior Court of Liberty County.
Okay. So you're 2 months out. You should be getting deep into all the pretrial stuff.
Yeah, we are starting to. There's just a voluminous amount of discovery that I've had to go through. And motion practice should begin in a few weeks. In that case.
Any big issues you think you're going to be dealing with, fighting for or against?
I have one big issue, but I'm going to wait and drop it on the state at the appropriate time.
There you go.
I don't want to preview it if I don't have to.
I appreciate that. A surprise a day. That was my motto for during trial.
There you go.
A surprise a day. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
And hopefully a surprise. I was springing at somebody else, not the recipient of the surprise. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this crazy thing that's taken on a life of its own. Not unlike YSL. General impressions at this point in the process. Karen Reed, the defendant, saying they're going to finish their case. She thinks next Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. So, thoughts?
I guess what I've been focused on most lately, since I've had trouble keeping up with it on a day-to-day basis, is just this mistrial issue that has come up in the last, yesterday, I guess it initially came up. And I think it's really fascinating, more so that how dug in people are on one side or the other of whether a mistrial should have been granted. And then, of course, everyone that thinks there should have been a mistrial thinks it should have been with prejudice, from what I can tell. So I was going back looking at it and looking at the Massachusetts rules of evidence, which are similar to everybody else's rules of evidence. And again, the one thing about this darn trial is I know that no matter what I say, I'm going to get half the world pissed off at me. But that's kind of the case anyway. But it's, I was looking at it, and it seems to me, and I guess all your viewers are well versed in this, so we don't have to go over the background. But this issue of the dog bite DNA.
But that's a good idea. Let's reset for folks who maybe not sure what that was about. This issue of DNA of any kind was talked about pre-trial. We're not going to get into it. It's not going to be an issue. And then on cross-examination of Dr. Marie Russell, Hank Brennan starts asking about, did you know anything about the DNA found in the wound? Okay. So he's opened up that can of worms, totally against any of the pre-trial understanding and agreement between the parties. That's what prompted Leslie to say we need a mistrial with prejudice. Obviously, it was denied. Okay, pick up
Yeah.
from where you
No,
were.
so here's my thing. If there would not have been those pretrial statements that they weren't going to get into DNA and all those pretrial issues, then I think under the Massachusetts rules, it was completely appropriate on cross-examination to get into that question, right? For a number of reasons. One, if you have a dog bite expert testifying, as a defense attorney or whoever the attorney is that's presenting that witness, you have to expect they're going to ask about DNA. So in that respect, it shouldn't have been surprising. And certainly it was an appropriate question on cross-examination if you have a good faith basis to ask it, which again, I think Brennan did have a good faith basis to ask it. The problem comes from all the pretrial discussion that they weren't going to get into DNA. And so, and I am not as sure of the minutia of that. Was the statement made that in our case in chief, we're not going to get into DNA? I don't know how broadly that kind of a waiver may have been given, but without that pretrial part, I think Alessi, and you wouldn't have been surprised by this, right? I mean,
Oh
you're
no. I mean that's a great distinction to make. And by the way, I saw Linda Kenny Bodden pop on and say hello, and then I saw somebody else pop on and say, "Where's the watch?" So,
yeah,
well, when you find that, let me know. But yeah, the distinction's important because you are able to attack the foundation and of any expert's opinion. And if that foundation discounted, ignored, didn't know about DNA, then that's fair game. So I think you're absolutely right. Had it not been an issue prior, then nothing to talk about here.
yeah. But if I would have been Alessi and these statements were made pre-trial, that you were not going to get into DNA, that was not going to be an issue brought up at trial, I would have been ballistic as well.
Yeah.
And I would have asked
unless
for a
he
mistrial.
was, he
Yeah.
was, he's a pretty forceful, well-spoken dude, but he was really bellowing his
Yeah.
distaste, distrust. There's no love lost between these two sides. Quite often you'll have a trial, and when you're in the arena, you're fighting zealously for your client and you're butting heads. But after the end of the day, it's like see you tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
That's the case with these folks. I don't think there's any love lost at all. And so every little thing that comes along and every big thing kind of is magnified because of the animus that I sense is there between them.
Yeah, I am not a daily by the hour trial watcher of this case, and even I can pick up on the animus between the sides, which is really too bad. And I don't know what happened to establish that between these folks. But I would have been jumping up and down too if I was Alessi, and I would have been asking for a mistrial with prejudice. I would have loved to have heard more of that, or what happened at that sidebar discussion that occurred.
Oh man.
I kind of liked in YSL, well, it didn't matter to me, but I think the viewers probably liked that they could see almost all of that interaction. I think in that type of interaction, they would have witnessed all the arguing about that. And so it's a shame we couldn't see that. But so I would have asked for it with prejudice. I would have said clearly the prosecution was goading for a mistrial, and therefore, you can't retry the case. And I would have done the whole production, which I think I would have sincerely believed that the state knows they're losing and they want another bite at a third in this case, a third bite at the apple to restart this, learn the lessons of this trial and do it all. And so, I would have been stomping my foot as well. And I just to be clear, if people just see snippets, I'm only saying that because of what was said pre-trial, that they weren't going to get into DNA.
And I've seen some people give, very few, but some people give Hank Brennan the benefit of the doubt that because it would be more normal in a traditional case that you haven't talked about at pre-trial, you would go into that. That would be one of the ways you're going to knock out from under this witness the basis of any opinion. So I get that. I don't give them that benefit of the doubt. I've seen too much over too long a period of time. I just had a weird flashback. I was talking about how sides can be, battling, and then end of the day, it's like, see you tomorrow. There was a cartoon used to be on back in the day. It was a dog and a cat, and they were being, dogs and cats. The whole cartoon episode would be them fighting one another and hiding, and then at the end of the day, they would punch out. They would go to a clock and punch out, so they're no longer fighting in one another. Now they're just buddies. Come to work the next day and fight one another. So
well, there's that check on that same line, and that's what I actually use this to explain to people how, in general, prosecutors and defense attorneys have good relationships, and in most cases better than civil litigants have with each other. And it's the old Chuck Jones Warner Brothers cartoon of the I guess it's like a sheepdog and a Wile E. Coyote or somebody like that, and they clock in, they
Yep.
fight each other, they clock out.
Yep.
And that's how at the last two trials I've done, I have a great relationship with my prosecutors. I mean, I became Facebook friends with one of them. So this isn't, and it's a shame that I think so many viewers are getting perhaps the wrong impression of the general relationship between prosecutors and defense attorneys.
I agree. And if you look back at the ASAP Rocky case, which we did right on the heels of your case, same way, Mr. Lewin and Joe Tacopina not hanging out afterwards having a beer.
No.
So,
I don't think I could. Joe Tacopina is a great lawyer, but I in a non-trial setting, I don't think I could hang out with Joe Tacopina. I mean, I'm too much a guy raised in the South to hang out with such an intense New Yorker.
What about John Lewin? Could you hang out with John Lewin?
Probably not either. I don't know.
That just triggered John Lewin whenever we hear his name.
Okay, I got it.
And nobody would cry like this guy. He's unbelievable. But anyway, so I think you're right. I think people are getting, kind of a weird impression of the antagonistic nature, not of the business, but how it seems to be carrying on and continuing outside the walls of the courtroom.
Yeah.
So, understanding that you're not deep into this thing, what from the nuggets you've heard, from the headlines you've read, from the stories you've read, what is your take of the prosecution's case at this point? And I say prosecution's case, even though we're almost done with the defense case as well.
I know. So what I have seen is, it really hasn't changed my opinion from having reviewed the first trial prior to this trial, which is this is a voluntary manslaughter case. I'm sorry, involuntary manslaughter case, or maybe voluntary manslaughter case all day long. I can't believe they retrying it as a murder. I don't see guilt beyond a reasonable doubt on murder. I just don't think they've proven that. I think that assuming the jury, to me, assuming the jury follows the law, I don't see a guilty verdict coming back on the murder.
Do you think the charge of second-degree murder is a problem for the prosecution, assuming I think most people would assume that's a tough sell, period. But it's there, and that can cause problems for the jury.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I don't understand why. The problem is when you reach for things too, the way the prosecution has to do because of the way they charge the case. I think that it undercuts your credibility and makes the rest of your charges perhaps a little more difficult for a jury to find for you on. I mean, it's just my impression.
Yeah, and the other possibility, if you look at it the other way, is that they've got something to compromise to and default to, right?
Well, that's always a strategy choice, right? Do you give the jury a compromise verdict to go to? I think a lot of people say that you do that with the second degree. I don't know. I just don't understand a lot of the strategy that Hank Brennan has been using.
And it is very different than the first trial. We know that. We know that they've washed their hands of Michael Proctor. And at this point, it appears the defense has as well. Now, you, I'm sure, have some sense of the Michael Proctor factor, as I've called it from the very beginning. Oh, there she is.
Sorry about that. Hi, Doug. I've been watching.
Hey, Linda Kenny Bodden has come between us.
Hey, Linda.
And
we always said
you see the makeup being put on because I'm so late.
We always said no woman would ever become.
I know,
Michael.
And there it is, Doug. There it is.
I know.
I know. So while you're finishing getting ready, let's finish our little quick discussion here. And that is
I can get off the stage while you.
No.
I didn't.
That's
I didn't
that's
mean
my
that.
problem with women. That's in a nutshell. There it is. So the Michael Proctor factor is not what it was in the first trial. What will impact on a
But-
jury who probably wants to see this dude?
I mean, the jury's got to know about Michael Proctor, right? So is he just going to be the empty chair, the man that isn't mentioned? I mean, is the defense not calling this guy to the stand?
Well, again, every time there is a gag order in place, so everything that's been mentioned through Karen Reed is TBD, TBD. And
Yeah.
then now it is more like we're going to be done next Tuesday. And we know there are a number of experts that have to come on. So I'm not even sure based on that time estimate where he would go. They've not denied it, but they've not affirmed it, and they're leaving it kind of hanging in the air.
But why not dirty up the state with Michael Proctor?
I would. I would
Yeah.
love it. I don't
Yeah.
see the downside to it.
No, there's
And
no
I think
doubt.
it would be so satisfying for the jury after all they've heard from opening statements through all the different witnesses, what a douchebag this guy is. And now he's the former trooper Proctor, and all the things he did or didn't do in this investigation. I want to see this guy.
I want to see him. I want to put him on the stand. I want to call him former trooper every time I address him, like every single time.
Yeah, Linda,
and-
we want Proctor.
Oh.
We want Proctor.
I know. You know, I varied between that. Initially, I said no. Then I said yes because you have to get the text in, and the text kind of went in kind of like crazy because you had those first set of texts with him and his superiors calling the medical examiner a whack job, which were like later. And then you got the new texts in, but David Yannetti didn't read them, and then Hank Brennan read them, and they went like zoom. So I think the text kind of lost something, even though they were terrible. They were terrible. So I don't know if I'd call him. I think that would be the only thing. But then I can see Judge Beverly Cannone saying, Hank going objection, and Cannone saying, "Oh, you've already read them. You don't have to read them again."
It's cumulative. Yes, it's cumulative. We've already seen this.
403.
403. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
I don't do a good Hank Brennan present. Michael does.
Michael's was good.
Yours is Hank Brennan at the end of the day. That's after he's a little, kind of ragged, kind of.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, I'm late. Sorry, I'm late. By the way.
No, are you all right? Everything good?
Yeah.
Good?
Look at those teeth. Look at those smiley teeth.
Look at that.
But I got caught in an elevator today. The elevator wouldn't open up. So that's
what they all say.
Oh, you were showing your teeth. Maybe you just came from the dental hygienist or something like that.
I just came from an afternoon appointment with the dentist. Yes.
Nice. I had one of those the other day, and apparently I was texting out images of me while with the hygienist next to me doing selfies, which I didn't realize till after I got out the chair.
Oh, some
the
pocket
effect of
selfies.
I'll tell you what, but it was really interesting, because my hygienist is like a crime fan. So usually when we used to be along crime, she used to have that on. And so when I walk in today to deal with what I had to deal with, she's got Court TV on. She says, I'm up. She didn't even know we were covering it because she didn't know that Michael and I had left to start this streaming channel. I am obsessed with this case. Well, interesting because when you're listening to people that are obsessed with the case, and I didn't say a word about it. She said, I think they're framing her. That Trooper Proctor. She said they saw. How about that house? They rehomed their dog. They sold the house. I mean, she had every single thing that the defense has put out there in the first trial and all, and people are talking about. She was absolutely adamant that Karen Reed is being framed, and you know what? I kind of agree with her.
She's not the only one.
Yeah, I didn't believe that to begin with, but then after I saw today, I don't know if you guys watched social media.
I didn't see today.
Well,
I didn't see today.
And social media, because as I'm sitting in the chair, and then trying to look, some people are putting out that who are the anti Karen Reed people, that Lucky, the snowplow driver, who's like the salt of the earth, lied because he had nicked John O'Keefe, and those were those arm injuries from John O'Keefe, and that really Karen Reed called just a head injury. So that's their new line. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. But I'm just telling you what's out there.
I saw some snippets of Lucky. That doesn't look like a man who's capable of lying.
No, he's so earnest, and he's so straightforward. He's so solid about what is right and wrong to him. It's so refreshing. And Linda and I have talked about this, that we're so oh, it's noteworthy when a witness is honest and seems to be telling the truth without some sort of agenda. That's weird.
Yeah.
Both
Woody had
cops
that.
and others.
Woody had a great line in YSL where they were trying to get him to say something, and he said, here I am quoting Woody, but he said, "Do you want me to get on the stand and tell the truth, or tell you the lies I told the cops?"
I remember that. That was such a great line.
Yeah, that's from the book of Woody. Yes.
Finessing the cops. I'll never forget that he was just finessing the cops. I thought that was that was so smart, because that's what he was doing.
How's he doing now? I know you went to a basketball game with him. You're hanging with him now?
I'm not hanging with him. We went to a ball game back in late January. I guess he'll whenever he has something crazy going on, he'll text me, or when he's a great source of referral for work for me. He will refer people to me, which I really appreciate. So I get referrals from Woody, and he's he honestly, like I've said before, I think he's honestly turned his life around. I don't think this act that people claim he's been putting on, he could be pulling this off now for, I guess he's going on 9 or 10 months of this new born again Woody. I think it's real.
So have you guys looked at some of these questions that you have?
Of course not. I'm horrible at this.
I haven't, because I am not in the app and I can't see any of the chats.
Okay, so Blessed in Texas, member for 2 months. Hi, Blessed. Michael, Doug, do you think, and she says she's maybe jumping the gun, do you think the Reed civil trial will be televised? She wonders, what do you think if it goes to a civil trial? Do you think?
Yeah, that's the big if. I don't think there's a chance in hell that there will be a jury sworn in that it'll get that far.
I can't imagine there'll be a civil trial. And civil trials are also tend to be more boring, more orchestrated, more like a waltz, and less fascinating for people to watch. So even if there is one, I don't know that it will draw much interest.
So so many civil cases, it's in excess of 99%. They resolve on the way to trial. Quite often it's because money comes from insurance companies. They don't like to go to trial. They rather settle. In this case, it's interesting because you do have, collections of money that have been gathered, by supporters for Karen Reed. I'd be shocked if it went to trial.
In 25 years of patent litigation, with scores and scores of patent cases, well over 100 probably, I think I had one go to trial.
Yeah.
So civil cases just doesn't happen.
Remember the OJ case? It did go. That's the level it had to reach before.
Well, there you had plaintiffs that definitely wanted to air that out in public.
And he was hiding all his assets too. So there was nothing for them to get, and there was no insurance coverage. So you got to go.
Yeah. Hopefully, for you guys, that was before the age of your audience and they don't remember it. If you guys are in the right demo.
Wait a minute, I was there.
Yeah. The OJ demo is too old for your advertisers, I think.
Yeah. Madeira Beach Caregiver, one of our big supporters. Thank you, Madeira Beach. You're always so generous. And Madeira Beach Caregiver, her hospice nurse, just fabulous.
That's
Doug's
a good question,
thoughts,
too.
This is a great question. Doug's thoughts on, I have to say it right now, Dever.
Never say Dever.
I have no thoughts on Dever. I apologize. I don't have any thoughts on Dever.
That may be best.
Yeah, is that best? I have no thoughts on Dever. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't have thoughts on Dever.
It's funny. People have been cutting her testimony up and dropping it here and dropping it there because there's so many nuggets of just disgust. She is just. I think she was used. Some people think she's just an evil person. I don't know what was the motivation for testifying as she did.
I called her a cocky ass bitch. Okay, and I try not to do that against her. Well, okay, that's how upset and pissed off.
So you think everything she did was intentional, right?
Yes,
you think,
I do.
Okay,
absolutely.
Which can you cite an item or two in particular that you think?
I think that when she talked about her false implanted memories, I think that was intentional to say that. I think it was intentional that she said that it was just normal for her to go to the commissioner's office, just one-on-one, her and the commissioner, because he cared about his people. I think that was intentional. I think the whole line with Jackson, where she went after Jackson and said, you did this to me. You were the ones that I think the whole
Well,
thing
that's just
was
stupid. That whole
intentional.
thing is
Well,
stupid. My question about intent, let me ask you this, Doug, is not that she, obviously, when she was saying these things, it was intentional. She meant to say what she was saying. Well, what was the genesis of it? Was it the meeting with that commissioner when he said, at the very least, do the right thing? And I'm not happy that he stole my line. He said, do the right thing. And he said, we'll stand behind you. There was certainly more to that conversation. Do you think
sure.
that included, here's the story we need you to tell?
Of course it did, right? I mean, I'm guessing, but of course it did. And the other thing about Dever is could not answer a question straight at all. I just think appeared incredibly evasive. Um, so whatever. Those are my limited thoughts on
Whatever
Dever.
for Dever.
There you go.
Thank you, but it's a great question.
It is.
So we have another one. Did you see? By the way, Missy, is one of my moderators. She said, "Doug, put on the website referred by Lil Woody." Okay, and
That's a
then
good idea.
Madeira Beach also wanted to know: is there an update on Monk Tunk?
Oh, that's a good question. I know his people have been briefing. I guess he has two attorneys that leapt in to help him out. I believe they were successful on one of the arguments they made, that there were an aspect of his sentence was improper, but I think his 5 years of probation revocation still stands. And I know more about it than I realized I knew. I believe they're appealing Judge Whitaker's ruling
For
on
those who
those
don't
issues.
remember, he was one of the YSL defendants. Early took a deal, right? And in retrospect, probably not the best thing to do, but what are you going to do? And then they violated him. Is that right? And then
They violated
he's
him.
in on that.
They violated him for. Judge Whitaker didn't make it entirely clear whether they violated him for either lying on the stand or lying when he took his plea. But at one point or another, he had to have lied because his statements were inconsistent. So she violated him for 5 years. Out of the 10, she could have violated him for 10. She violated him for 5. I'm convinced Judge Glanville would have violated him for 10.
Yeah.
But she only did 5.
He should have just gone to the Dever school and said, "I had a false implanted memory." I guess. Guess the cops get away with it all the time. Obviously now, or will.
Yeah. I actually went to Mr. Garlington's plea last week and watched that. It was a non-negotiated plea.
Okay.
So he basically
not unlike Brian Steele's client, right?
Not unlike Young Thug.
Yeah.
So
that's always dangerous.
It is, but it worked out really well for him. So yeah.
Hey, Linda,
There's
we
only
were
one
talking
defendant left there.
So
and who's left?
You've got all these questions.
Hold on.
Next question.
I'm going to squeeze in a question, Linda, because we talked about this. We were talking about Judge Whitaker, and she was just lauded for something, right? And she's
going to go to. She's
moving up.
Finalist for the Supreme Court.
She's on the short list of 4 for the Supreme Court.
We were just thinking, if that happens,
she's going to get it.
Yeah. So if that happens, remember, she retained jurisdiction on all these defendants because I think she cared. She wanted to have some ongoing control, but she'd be relinquishing that, right?
She would. And I don't know who it would go to. I'm assuming it would go back on the wheel and be randomly assigned to someone other than Judge Glanville.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shame because Judge Whitaker was really holding the state's feet to the fire on all of their revocation attempts. So I was really happy having her there. But I guess overall it'll be good for the state and for her if she gets on the Supreme Court, which is really where she's earned a spot. Yeah. So good for her. Yeah.
And look, the appeal for the revocation would go to her to the Supreme Court. So,
eventually, that's true.
Everything about that.
She might have to recuse herself from that, but anyway.
I don't know. Kimberly Hoffman said, "Did Binky Baby Brennan say hello to you, Michael, when talking to Dina? Hi, Mr. Weinstein, and beautiful Linda. Thank you very much for that."
No, every time I try to talk to Mr. Brennan, he either ignores me or just says, "Have a good day." That's about it. But he's gagged. He's gagged. So,
I haven't kept up with it. Are you allowed near the courthouse now? Or is
Yeah. I actually violated that many times prior to the recent court ruling. And now I was up there today, and there a lot of folks are gathered. There's much bigger scrum at the courthouse steps, and then right across the street where the parties kind of come and go in their black SUVs. All the supporters are now right there instead of a block or so away, which is much less effective. So, so they get a chance to kind of see Karen and the gang.
We never had a supporter scrum in YSL. We were there are supporter scrums in the Cop City case. There's reporter scrums there.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting. All right. So Joey Kane, by the way, Joey Kane gifted one Justice Serve TV membership, then gifted another Justice Serve TV.
They would not be complete without a Joey Kane gifted JSTV membership.
Yeah, that's very nice of Joey Kane.
Yeah, Joey Kane. And then there's another question for you, Doug, from Brooklyn. Brooklyn has one of our cups, by the way, one of our mugs. One of the good ones back here. You can kind of see it. Yeah, that one. Did he see when Hank Brennan asked Dr. Marie Russell if she has memory issues? Did you see that?
I did not see that question. What was the purpose of that question? What was he trying to elicit?
Well, let's see. As I recall, because I watched it again yesterday, because her reaction was the key. He was asking her about some of her prior testimony, and she was a little loose on either the timing or one of the details. And then he just followed that up with, "Do you have memory issues?" And she went, "No."
Okay.
She was
shocked. Like a diss to an older woman. I mean, I don't know if you followed this case. He Daubert hearing her for 2 full days after she had already testified in the first trial and had a Daubert hearing there. So he did it again. So she was kind of ready for him this time and all. And he I guess he was told not to be so nasty to her, but he just couldn't resist. It's like the scorpion who goes on the back of a turtle to get a ride across the pond.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Doug, how would you like it if, it came back to bite him in the ass for sure, because how would you like it as any attorney, defense or otherwise, you get to have a trial run with a witness for 2 days plus, not counting the first trial because Brennan wasn't here for that. But you know that you are educating, you as the attorney are educating that witness, right? They now know what's coming. They know how to adjust their testimony, or at least be prepared for what's coming. And it to me, it backfired on Brennan.
I kind of have that situation in a case, not one of the ones I've mentioned to you, but I have a case coming up where I've got some amazing material for cross-examination that some people wanted me to use in a preliminary type motion setting. And I'm like, no way I am giving this stuff up and educating the state on how I'm going to absolutely destroy their witness when it comes to trial. I don't want to do that. I mean, obviously what I really miss from civil practice more than anything else is depositions. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they're freewheeling, man. They're wide open.
Wow, because most people hate depositions.
Well, it's funny because in civil, like I say, most of the stuff settles and doesn't go to trial, right?
Right.
So the depositions are marginally less useful. But in criminal, I would love to go to Florida and try a case where they have depositions, because the opportunity to get in there and learn so much in a deposition prior to trying your case, it's fantastic. And to be able to lock people into testimony and then use it to impeach them when they change. I mean, I actually did a lot of that in the one civil case I had that did go to trial. But you can lock them all up, and it's just great. And I wish we had that. I mean, it would cause criminal cases to become more expensive, but
it would probably resolve more cases too, don't you think?
It probably would.
Yeah, maybe. We had that in the Casey Anthony case, and I got to take the deposition every single FBI examiner that was going to do the DNA, right?
Yeah.
And they had the lawyer for. She and I became friends. And then they had the lab director there because, part of their accreditation process is they have to watch them when they testify. And I remember the lab director saying to me, "You know an awful lot about this stuff." And you have to cross out DNA. You get to learn, you get to pin them down, even stuff that you may know, but you don't know their process or their procedure. And I learned so much about what they did at the FBI lab. And as I said, as a result of that, the lawyer for the FBI labs and I became very, very good friends. She would call me. She'd call me actually when she wanted to give discovery as opposed to going through the state. So
Yeah. Well, to keep going down this little side path for a little bit, if we can, when I get a civil forfeiture that comes along with a drug case, I immediately stay the forfeiture because I don't want to, basically end up defaulting because my client doesn't, takes the fifth during a deposition in the civil forfeiture case. And I was having a long discussion with Bruce Harvey about this, and Bruce was like, "No, I never stay a civil forfeiture case. As a matter of fact," Bruce told me, "I plow hard ahead on the civil forfeiture because I use the depositions that I can get in the civil forfeiture case
wow.
to educate myself on the criminal case." I'm like, "Oh my
Wow.
God, that's
That's
when
great.
your freedom is more important than your money, that's not a bad move."
Yeah, that's really a great move. Doug, factualize a question for you.
Yes,
Doug, did
this
you have a favorite day in the YSL trial? Not the verdict.
Okay.
Mine was 403 day.
does that ring a bell? 403, day
Of
403?
course, 403 day. Um, you know, 403 day was just immensely satisfying, I think. And for people that don't know what 403 day was, and I don't even remember the details of 403 day anymore, but there was some issue that Adrian Love wanted to address at the very beginning of the day. I pretty much objected. We went to the bench. We had a bench conference. I'm like, "Look, this is a waste of time. We just need to move on." And Adrian Love fought me on it. And the judge said, "Well, we're going to let her do it, but you just may have to object as the questions go." She basically invited me to do it. And so, yeah, just about every question or every other question was 4. I mean, and people think 403 is a normal thing that happens in trial, and it never gets sustained. And yeah,
I
so
love it. How great are our viewers that they are so involved in your cases? They can talk about 403 day. How great
yeah,
is that, huh?
people have sent me like notebooks, like really nice hardbound books for keeping notes in that have like embossed on them 403 team. And they sent them to a bunch of the YSL defense attorneys. So that was a
Oh,
memorable day for a lot of people.
Wow. Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Let me
ML, by the way, says she loves my new
love
nails.
your new
No,
nails.
I don't really have them done because I don't have
Um,
time to finish them because I've been on the air with you guys so much that maybe tonight I'll get to finish them. Thank
Doug,
you,
let me
ML.
ask you about a couple of former cohorts. Brian
yeah, yeah.
Steele, now representing Sean Diddy. Thoughts? Have you talked to him?
I've texted, but not about the case, not
Okay.
about the Diddy case. I have thoughts on it. People that are upset, members of the public that are upset with Brian Steele for defending Diddy, don't understand what it is that we do for not only do for a living, but what we do as a passion and an advocation. We defend people's constitutional rights and make sure that the state proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And in doing so, protect everybody's rights. And Brian representing Diddy is nothing different than him representing Young Thug. And so all these people that say, "Well, he was a hero of mine when he defended Young Thug, but how can he defend Diddy?" To me, it's the same
It
thing.
is. It's absolutely the same thing. Obviously, the defendant, very different. But that doesn't mean the job or the representation of the zealous defense is different. It's the same.
No, no. And right after YSL, he defended a prosecutor down in Brunswick
Yep.
on the Ahmed Arbery case.
Yep. And he got
Um,
those kicked. As I recall, there was an
he
acquittal, right?
did, they screwed up the indictment. The state
Oh,
screwed up
that's
the
right.
indictment.
There was a timing issue, and he got it kicked, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he got that dismissed. But anyway, yeah. So that's what's going on with Brian.
I just want to put this one up here, and this is not somebody who normally posts for us, Karen McCourt, because this is that tugs at my heartstrings. I really
Mm,
hope that this shit show is over, basically, for Lucky. Honest man, making a living as best he can, lost his wife. I lost my husband, Karen says. It's freaking hard. Karen, our hearts go out to you, and we thank you for coming on the show. And just because this just tugged at my heartstrings, looking at this, and I think it reminds us all that we can look at the trials and people can say they're entertainment, but the participants in it who get attacked, they have real lives and real problems and real work, and Lucky was there for 3 days, and to attack him and to say some of the things they're saying about this man, to me, just it hurts me personally. Doug, I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, no, I feel exactly the same way, and I guess it's not surprising that I feel that way, because some of these YSL guys who were brought back as witnesses, and in particular, for whatever reason, Tit is the one that sticks in my head, and I forget his government name at the moment because it's been too long, but um, he'd not been involved in this business for years and years and years. And when he got on the stand and he's talking about how at 11 years old, he he'd gotten locked up and sent to juvenile, and that's where he learned about gangs and everything else. The society threw Tick away at 11, and now he's out there. He's earning a living. He's got his like CDL, if I remember right, and he's dragged back into all of this, and he's missing work, and he's just trying to live his life. And he's a casualty of the case. So Lucky even more so.
Yeah.
So I totally feel the same way. Mr.
Uh,
Stevens, Tick's name
right.
was Mr. Stevens.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone loves you here, Doug. I don't know if you see the comments. They're just,
cannot, but keep 'em
Trontavia
coming.
Stevens. Trontavia Stevens says
Trontavia
Nancy.
Stevens, yeah, Mr. Stevens, yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Stevens, yeah.
So I
but
feel
they
I feel
all
for
love
him.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, let people grow and leave their past behind. And anyway, it's hard. It's hard.
So, if you had a crystal ball, what do you think the jury is going to do here if it was done today, if the jury were deliberating today?
I don't think I've seen enough of the trial to give an educated opinion on it. I'm sorry, I know that's a cop out, but
No, it's perfectly
it's
reasonable.
the straight answer.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I've seen it all, and I don't know what's going to happen. So,
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
I'm
glad I didn't invest that time.
when if you start guessing or pretending you know what a jury's going to do, you're doomed. So, anything.
Yeah, she says, Shy Gal, one of our moderators, we love you, Doug, and they love you for that opinion. And how about this? And there's been some talk about it when we talked about it. If you were at your home and there was a body found on your front lawn, would you expect, number one, the police coming calling? And then if you got rid of your cell phone and you were a cop who lived at the house, or you throw away your SIM card and all, would you expect some kind of warrant to get your records, or what would you, or some kind of charge for obstruction? What would you expect in the normal situation for the normal case with you and I, or Michael? This would happen.
Objection leading.
I'll allow it.
I would expect a warrant. I would be on the phone with my attorney, and I would expect a warrant. Didn't they also give away? They rehomed their dog. They destroyed their SIM card, and they didn't even go in the home. Is that correct?
They didn't even go in the home the next day. They never searched it.
The next day, and they kind of stayed in the foyer.
They didn't have the authority to get a warrant.
What?
There we go. That's a reaction.
Yeah, that's how ridiculous it is. Yeah.
I mean, it is ridiculous. Didn't have the authority. I mean, a magistrate will sign anything you throw in front of them.
Of course.
Come on.
Dead body on the lawn.
Or her.
Good enough for me.
Or her. No. I didn't say her because I would expect a female magistrate to have a higher standard.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Nice save.
And they sold the house too. They also sold the house too.
Of course, they did.
But that was because they were emotionally, so upset about what happened there, not because they're trying to hide anything.
But again, this whole, I hope, and again, I haven't been able to see as much as I'd like, but I hope the defense isn't doing the thing they did before, which is setting up an alternative theory and forcing the jury to choose between theories. Because I still think that's a mistake.
Yeah, Linda, what do you think? I think they've done a good job of not pressing that, certainly as hard as they did the first time, which led at least one jury member to think that, I guess the defense has to prove conspiracy, and they didn't in our minds. I mean, once the jury starts believing that the defense has that kind of burden, you're screwed. So I think they've peddled it more like they haven't proven their case. All this stuff is happening. Jury members, you figure out why. Something smells rotten here. and I think it helps diffuse an already weak Commonwealth case. So I think they've backed off of that whole
That's
framing conspiracy thing. That's my
That's
take.
good.
Linda, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the best thing the judge actually did for them is and maybe say there's dismiss the third party culpability here on the basis that I could see. I mean, if I were trying this case, I could see throwing out, look, something happened in the garage of the house with the dog. He ended up dead. They didn't want to have. They know as cops what could happen to them with a dead body in the house, so they just figured, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
I mean, as an alternative theory, instead of they had to get into a fight and they had to do this and they intentionally killed him. I think once you start throwing that out, that's harder, and I think they
Yeah.
have
Of
soft pedaled it more.
course, now the jury's heard the whole dog DNA question.
Yeah, that's
So
another
that
issue.
kind of taints the whole thing, right? Like, where's the dog DNA?
Right.
Do I still think do I think the FBI is watching this case? Are you asking about the YSL case or the
I think they're
What
talking
is
about this
this?
case, but were they watching your
Yeah,
case?
I don't know.
Well, maybe they're watching about where the Richard Millay watches in the YSL case. I guess both.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Thug's sister Dolly keeps tweeting about the watch, wondering where the watch is. Everybody wants the watch.
Richard Millay. It's,
Anybody been watching that show? I think it's called Neighbors and Friends with
No.
oh yeah, it's very good. I think it's on Apple Plus. John Hamm plays this former financial dude who ends up being fired, shady circumstances, but he's used to a huge income. He's broke now. He starts breaking into neighbors' homes, and watches are some of the things that he steals. And you're getting education on the value of some of these watches, and at least one of them was a Richard Millay watch.
Yeah, if you watch the body cam from Thug's house, you can actually see John Hamm in a slight corner of one of the images. So maybe John Hamm
See?
is the one that has Thug's watch.
See?
Forrest Gump says, Linda and Michael, bringing truth for Karen Reed. Thank you. You're very welcome. But I want to say that, during Joe Tacopino's trial with ASAP Rocky, Joe was wearing apparently a different watch every day to match his outfit. And, there was a website that was keeping track of what the watch was and how much it cost. This one's 100,000, this one's 150, this is 200, this is 75. Yeah, every single day there was a watch. Tacopino watch.
Well, I can totally one up Tacopino because I would switch the facades, the $15 to $20 facades on my glasses to match my tie.
Yes, and those were noteworthy. We did, there were comments about the various glasses frames. There's no doubt about it. Yeah,
there you go. I had a jury ask me about that after I went back to ask them questions after a verdict a couple of months ago.
Mhm.
They're like, how many pair of glasses do you have?
It's always weird when you talk to the jurors and some of the things they focus on.
Well, they certainly. How do I put this nicely? They didn't have to spend a lot of time looking at the evidence to decide on a verdict. So
or
they
the
had
lack
they had a lot of free time on their hands.
That is true.
Well, this has a double entendre meaning. Okay, Doug's frames were great.
I didn't frame anyone.
There's only one frame.
Get it. I like it. It's clever. That's very clever.
Very clever. We have very clever viewers here.
Yeah,
so I understand we're going to watch you.
I got the details. While you were in the chair, right? I got the details. August. It's one of those months. August 9, Georgia versus Casotis in Hinesville, which is in Liberty County. It is a murder case, and
I know a Rule 22 has been filed by local TV. I don't know if anyone's picking it up nationally. I don't know. It did get national press when the arrest was first made, but I'm not sure. I mean, Sony Pictures is going to be coming in. It's going to be interesting.
Oh, well,
it's salacious, and it'll depend. You know how it is. August is actually a pretty good time because in terms of scheduling. I know from having been at Court TV and then Law and Crime, the summer sometimes is kind of dry, because vacations and whatever. So I think that increases the odds they'll come your way. So,
well,
Kohlberger. The only other alternative is Kohlberger, which is a different time zone.
Kohlberger,
different time zone.
different time
Oh,
zone though.
but he's
Same.
going to be in August too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
okay.
they're going to stream it on the court's YouTube feed, and a
Yeah,
lot of
see,
the
that's
days are
just
going to be, and a lot of the days are going to be closed.
yeah, and so there's
Okay.
no true TV,
I
pool
see. I
feed.
see.
It's the in-house feed, which is nasty. So
Okay. Well,
no
let's
real
stream everything on
competition.
YouTube by default. That's my position, and then people can
Do
throw in
you
cameras and do other
know?
stuff.
Do you know
Hmm.
that here in Massachusetts, where Michael
Mhm.
has had to sue, obviously, to
Yeah.
undo that First Amendment, the buffer
Yeah.
zone, and make it a First Amendment zone, that they don't recognize, they wouldn't give us a press pass because they don't recognize YouTube as being a valid a streaming media, a news media, even though it's the largest, the largest place people get their news in the world.
Yeah. Huge story on the New York Times just a couple of days ago that says young people today do not watch TV. They watch
No.
YouTube.
Yep.
That is where that's like saying TV is not a valid means, only radio back in 1950s. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
And that's and it's not just the youngsters. It's the
The
ages
oldsters.
creeping up for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why when you can target so specifically what you want to see and when you want to see it, why should you be tied to some other programmer's schedule? You just don't need it.
That feels like a First Amendment violation for the government to make that distinction.
Yeah.
I think the courts
We
made it, and we thought about challenging, but we decided to challenge the First Amendment on the buffer zone
Mm,
first, and we had too many irons in the fire. But
yeah,
I think
I
that's
get it.
challengeable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Especially
don't think they
since
can make the
they
distinction.
have their own rule. It's Rule 1:19, the
Mhm.
Supreme Judicial Court, and it describes what is media, and it has a line in there that says independent or media from any source, electronic, print. I mean, they're violating their own rules. We
They
believe it
are.
was simply because, for this case, they wanted to keep as tight a lid on it as they possibly could, and they basically say, "Screw you, do something about it." I mean,
Well, it's
that's
really
you know,
great to see you go out there and fight for the First Amendment and fight for the rights of not just you, but everybody else. Because that
yeah.
buffer zone was ridiculous.
I mean, I'm not happy. It's a kiss in your sister result ultimately, but it's better than it was. So
Okay, it looks like I'm boarding.
you got to go on the
Yep,
plane.
gotta go.
Okay.
Have a great trip.
Thank you for having me on, guys.
Oh, thank
Thanks.
you.
Always
We
a
love
pleasure.
you.
We will keep
Okay,
promoting August, and the next trial we're going to follow. We do it. We will.
we'll
There you
see.
go.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
man.
Thanks,
Have a
Doug.
good trip.
Okay, bye. Hey, that worked out great. I'm so glad that he could be your co-host for the first half an
Yes,
hour.
and I was talking
Out on
about
your-
Lucky and his testimony. We never got to that. So
Yeah, well, we can talk about it here real quickly. Lucky's testimony I thought was fabulous. It was fabulous.
of course it was, and
Yeah.
it's so easy to deal with Hank Brennan if you're a normal, honest person. You don't get riled by his antagonistic ways, and it just made Brennan look worse and Lucky look better.
Right. I thought Lucky was great. And for those out there who's saying he hit John O'Keefe and he's lying, I mean, you've got
Yeah,
to
that's
be
a new
some
one. I
kind
hadn't thought of
yeah.
that one.
Well, there's somebody who's a real against Karen Reed, who's a former FBI agent who agreed with somebody's tweet who said that. So you can go look that up.
Oh, who could that be?
I wonder who that could possibly. At least if what I saw was correct, it was a screenshot. So people can make up screenshots. So I don't want to say it definitively, but that's
Well,
what I
I can
saw.
think of one former FBI agent who would make that comment. I can think of that.
Yeah, and then of course the Karina was also wonderful. I think she humanized Karen. She humanized whatever happened afterwards. She humanized the relationship, but she didn't get to say, Michael, that whole thing about whether or not Jennifer McCabe, who the defense is trying to show as a master manipulator in their case, said to her there was a ring video of John being hit by Karen Reed in order to turn her against Karen Reed. That's how she felt. But I guess
we were talking about that, and we know that Aiden anticipated that. I actually analyzed it as not an unfair objection or ruling because of the foundational issues. To get in, obviously, statements of Jen McCabe through another person, and she's not a party to the case. These aren't declarations against interest. So to get over the hearsay, she wasn't the right witness to do that. So I don't necessarily say it was the wrong ruling, but it would have been nice to hear that. And if I'm in the defense, I wish I could have gotten to that. She just wasn't the best witness to do it. Why don't you bring that up with Jen McCabe?
Yeah, that is very interesting because I guess Jen McKay would deny it, but then you bring her on to Karina to say, here's the denial, but that's what she did say.
Yes.
So then that's how you get it in.
Yeah.
Your interview, by the way, this whole thing with Hank Brennan, I haven't gotten your take on it because I was rushing out. Why, I don't know. I mean, I just looked at four walls for an elevator for a long time. I was rushing out. Your interview when you came out, well, first of all, Hank Brennan talking about the blogger in the courtroom to intimidate Lucky, blah, blah, blah. I thought it was just ridiculous. Okay. Now, I don't know if all the jurors got it. We all got it. And talk about making Aiden a superhero, superstar. You then got actually a one-on-one interview with Aiden, who's been on our show twice, and who we've given great respect to. We've been, a lot of people don't like him. We tend to like him. We think without him, this case would not have seen the light of day. We think it's also ridiculous that he's been indicted as a journalist, and that's what's turned a lot of people on to believe that Karen Reed's frame. If you can indict journalists or try to take away the First Amendment zone, or seeing how Judge Cannoni's ruling, you start changing your opinion about what is happening in this case. Did you play any of that interview for people?
I didn't hear tonight because we barely got started. About 10 after Doug came on, and we've been going full strength with him since. It is out there, and I looked at it briefly, and it was like almost 20,000 views after a few hours, so people know it's there and can check it out. It's Aiden as he exits the courtroom. He does a bit of a scrum there at the courthouse steps, but I waited for him to finish. Then I went and chatted with him, and then the Karen Reed scrum, in which she talks about Tuesday being the last day for the defense. She said, give or take, so maybe it's Wednesday. No real explanation except for, we believe, witness availability for being dark tomorrow. So
okay, so
and then Esty. I don't know if people know Esty or not. Esty is one of the close cadre of the Karen Reed supporters. They probably recognize her, but I see her. We talk quite often, and so I have a quick conversation with her at the end of the.
No, she was great. She said, "Hi, Michael. Hi, Michael. How are you?"
Yeah, we always see one another and chat, but she's sitting there usually right next to Mrs. Reed. So yeah, she's in the inner circle there, very supportive, and has done a lot of the fundraising that was necessary, along with the Glarer and others.
Yeah, I actually put the link in for, maybe Missy can just put it in the chat.
You already found it? You just found it that quickly?
Yeah.
Did you? Wow,
I've got the link. Yeah, but
your text skills have increased dramatically. That's very good. Very good.
My text skills are terrible, and Siri hates my New Jersey accent. By the way,
yeah, I just saw the B word made its way into one of your texts, totally out of context, and then you blame Siri. You blame Siri for it.
I mean, if I'm going to use the B word, I'm going to use it, but I'm not going to in some ridiculous thing. But you know what happened? I did this update that Apple. I don't know if you got your new app. You don't have an Apple phone. You use
Apple Schmapple. No.
Yeah. All right. No. And they have 5 voices for Siri. Voice number 1 is now a male voice, and then there's several female voices. And all of a sudden, my Siri female voice has changed. They selected one for me, apparently. All right, and it clearly does not understand Jersey Girl. Okay, clearly does not understand Jersey Girl.
So then you can go and pick the one you want, but it has chosen one for you for now.
Yeah, right. And so I'm going to have to go pick the one I want because it's worse than it was, as you know.
I'm going to work this out and set it up so you have Hank Brennan's voice as your Siri.
Oh my goodness gracious! So I don't know. Missy, I just put that in the private chat. The link to Michael's incredible interview with everybody, with Karen Reed, one-on-one with Aiden, and with Karen Reed's friend, who really is Michael. How you doing? I mean, I was even I was impressed, Michael.
No, I mean, it's like hot dogs. If you eat enough hot dogs, you become an expert in hot dogs. I'm just hanging around a lot, so I'm hanging around. And then people get used to my hanging around. Yeah.
Yeah. We've only been there 12 times, and you're going to go 13 times. It looks like.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. I just don't know. The timing is critical because I definitely, the next time I'm going, it may be toward the closing arguments and then verdict watch, and we'll just hang out there until it's resolved. What was it? What was it last time? Was it 3 days? Somebody help me with that. I can't remember because they were jammed up twice before she declared mistrial. I thought it was 3 days. Does that sound right?
I think that was my recollection.
4
And the
days?
closing argument is only an hour.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we had that at Hernandez. Opening arguments, closing arguments, an hour. That's it. Doesn't matter
Speed round.
how long your case is. You know, yeah, it's like name that tune. I can close quicker, you know, than you can. You know, and, you know, maybe they go an hour. They'll let you do an hour and 5 minutes if you're close or whatever. But it's
Well,
basically
I
an hour.
remember at the end, and I believe Lally did it like he split his time, as I recall. I'm not 100% sure, but I do remember at the end of the time, she cut him off. And so whatever big crescendo he had planned was more like, let me look through the end of my pages. And then it was just, it kind of felt flaccid. It was not what he intended, but it was because she said, time's up.
Well, when you argue in front of the Circuit Court of Appeals, you
yeah.
get 20 minutes.
At least you get the lights,
at least, or
though.
15 minutes, but you get the lights. You get
You need the
know,
lights.
the green light, and then you get the you know, you
Yellow
get
light,
the yellow light, and
which
then
means
when
wrap
you're
it up.
wrap it up, and when it hit red, you can be in the half of a middle of a word. You're gone unless the court says to you, which they have. I've had a couple times the court say, Miss Kenny, you know,
nice.
we'd like to have you finish your argument, and we want to ask you another question. But it's their choice, not your choice, because you bet you're finished.
Yeah, no, and that's sufficient. Oh, here's a good question. Apart from Aka, who are they going to call? We were talking about that today as they were wrapping up, trying to calculate, well, how do they make it to Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
You probably do the ARCA witnesses in one day, you think, that both of them, or not?
No, there's no way
Wenchler and Wolf.
Hank Brennan's going to never.
Wenchler
He's
and
never.
Wolf.
Yeah, but I don't think Hank Brennan's going to. His cross-examination has to be long on those witnesses. Has to be, right? Has to be very long on those witnesses. Okay. It seems to me he's got the medical examiner, because they promised the medical examiner to have the imprint of that J imprint to show that there was some kind of raised argument, you know, raised hit. So they have to do that, right? They have to do. I think they're going to try to do, unless she grants this motion, Derek Ellington. That is.
That's going to be granted. You know that.
And
we talked about it a little bit earlier, just so folks know. This is the motion to prevent the cell phone guy. By the way, Amy's positive pathways. Love that Linda has Grogo behind her.
Grogu's right there. He's
mine is nearby.
There you see. I'm moving over. There's Grogu.
Love the original Yoda too. And Michael, is that a skeleton? Well, yeah, but I mean, it's not. How do I get out? I'm always backwards here. How's it?
There you go. Except now you put your chair. There you go. You got it.
He's stealing Miami at the moment. That's but it's not really. You know, it's a pretend skeleton. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank goodness. So they have. So that's a question whether or not they're going to be able to call him. They can call him on the previous report, but he's supposed to rebut some of Whiffin's and some of the new stuff that's come on. So they have that. Then they have the ARCA people, right? That's 4. And there was a 5th person we talked about. Who was the 5th person they have to call?
I can't remember.
Oh, the dog expert. The dog expert. Okay. By the way, Romy says member for 2 months. Hi, peeps. And that brings us to Nate, who says, I'm a dog aggression specialist, 20 years. Dr. R was correct in my opinion. They have Wig, right? They have Garrett Wing.
Yeah, Wing. Yeah, Garrett.
But whether they call, I don't know whether they need to call the dog expert, right? Because Marie Russell is fine. Why would you have anything contradictory to her?
I don't know if you need it. What else can you add to that?
And then can you have? Let me ask you this, because we didn't have that. We prevented the prosecution in the Hernandez case from putting on anything by not calling Bill Belichick when we had the chance to, when we finally got him served. Can you have rebuttal? Can you have rebuttal?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because that's when you might bring the dog to rebut Dr. Crosby, right?
Bring Garrett Wing to rebut Crosby. So I guess that's the issue. So maybe if you don't have, I guess you could finish in 3 days then if you just have La Posada, the forensic pathologist, and the ARCA
Ellington.
People.
Yeah.
The ARCA people. And
Ellington to some degree.
Yeah.
We haven't heard the ruling on that. And just to wrap up the Ellington thing, he did a report on the 1st, which he provided based on supplemental information from a Commonwealth expert.
Right.
And Hank Brennan says, no, we should not have any additional testimony or report after the March 3rd report, which is not an issue. So that would, if nothing else, truncate his testimony, but he should still testify.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
It's a two-parter, because does Massachusetts in general allow sur rebuttal in terms of the presentation of a case, and more importantly, does Judge Cannone allow it? That's the more important
Right.
question.
That's the more important. So I guess we have to research that and find a Massachusetts lawyer. Karen McCord. Karen, oh my gosh, Karen, my goodness gracious.
On Monday.
Exclamation. I broke my ankle on Monday, but I told my neighbors that I was watching Georgia Serve TV and I would go to the hospital when court broke for lunch. True story. I have an air case. Thank you. Boy, I tell you what, but I'm glad that we can be your supportive family.
I thought she was blaming us.
No, but Nate, interesting about that with the because that would be that's really the question, because then you say Wing to rebut. Their
So
phony
that's
expert.
very logical, and once you ask Siri for that, ask Siri that question.
Well, my Alexa right now would ask her, but I turned my Alexa off because she kept wanting to give me an alarm all day. So when I was on the air, or when you said I was going to be back to be on the air, I know you were mostly on the air today. Now tomorrow we have no court. Yeah. We have no court, and so I guess the question is going to be who's going to be on Friday, because I'll be on. Michael's going to be traveling. He's going to try to be on lunch, but you know what? He's got to be traveling. And I already gave it away, so you can't have a where in the world, because I said you were going to Pittsburgh.
Oh, did you already do that? Okay.
I should just not mention it. And then we would have a nighttime show at 6 p.m. And maybe tomorrow night, maybe we'll run a premiere with. We'll interview Sergeant Joe Jockalone, who's been on. The Sarge, who's been on with us, who's a great cop, right? On the issue of the honest cop, and also on the issue of the Michael Easter reconsideration, which the judge, at the very end just said, Elizabeth Little said, there's a motion, Judge, there's one upstanding, denied. Yeah.
Just unbelievable. She just doesn't care. She doesn't care. She really doesn't care, because there's going to be implications if there's a conviction on appeal. Those things mount up, and pretty soon even a harmless error becomes a reversible error, just because of the cumulative nature of all the mistakes. I'm looking up sur rebuttal.
It's like a sur rebuttal. Love Joe Jockalone.
It says it's rare. It says it's rare.
So it's rare that she's, and she'll say, you could have called him in your case in chief defense, and therefore I'm not going to let you call him on, rebuttal. Well, I think a dog expert to rebut a dog expert. They're calling a dog, some kind of dog trainer, former cop, to rebut Marie Russell. Unbelievable. Everybody loves the Sarge, by the way. Everybody loves the Sarge.
Did we talk about that happening, or?
Yeah, I just said that. I think that we're going to run. I think we'll interview him at his convenience tomorrow. So he's not, and then we'll run a premiere at 6 tomorrow night. I think that's what we need to do, and then we'll see what happens. I'll be on the air on Friday, and we'll see. We may just do a wrap up. We may just be doing a wrap up, because it depends on who they're calling, and not have a 6 o'clock show on Friday. So we'll play that by ear.
We'll be flexible. We'll make sure that what you need to know, you get to know.
Olivia,
we're posting.
Yeah, Olivia's in chat. Olivia Crosby is a dog behavioralist. A real one. Let's talk about the methodology that exists to discover dog behaviors out there. I trust my dog trainer, Tubi's trainer, and all. But I'm sorry. I'm being good, because we are.
Wait till they basically start using, the defense starts using Hank Brennan's exact words that he used with Marie Russell about methodology. He just pounded that into the ground. So admit there is no methodology. You could say the same thing to Crosby about his behaviorist, dog behavior expertise.
Not only that, I consider myself an expert, because what he's talking about is police dogs, and you see the Belgian Malinois with the biting of the thing. Here's a dog bite on my hand over here. Here's one over here. I don't have underlying dog bites. I can show you my leg. I have a dog bite on my leg.
We've discussed our dog bite scars, and I've got one right here.
And you have one right there, and you don't have a corresponding one on your back, because the dog grabs you by the front and you're pulling away.
Anybody Anybody, yeah, this played around, and I showed this wound. This is my newest wound right here. If they're just playing around and they're chomping, they don't have to go like this. Those
Right.
front teeth can just kind of poke you,
Right. And if you're pulling away and getting away from them, that's all you're going to have. And the Commonwealth is torn on this. Well, you're going to have this, whatever.
It's got to be a vice. If you don't have top and bottom, it's not a bite. That
Right.
seems to be the argument.
Yeah, and he's not a methodological, and he used methodology.
No, he's not a
and you're
medical.
absolutely right.
He's not a medical doctor. He's not.
And he didn't have to go through a Daubert hearing because she found that he was uniquely qualified.
Yeah.
But Marie Russell,
Was that a close call? Was that one of the close calls? Marie Russell was a close call, but
yeah, no,
Crosby was
shoe-in. Yeah, shoe-in, right. They're all shoe-in. Hi, Olivia. Olivia, I may need help on Friday. I'm going to be all alone doing all day of Michael's traveling again.
Come and help her. Help.
I need help. I need a co-host. I need help. Actually, you know why I need help? Because on Friday at 2:15, I have to do the testing for. I'm going to be on Fox Nation again with, I think it's not probably Mr. DePietro on and some other people.
He's got to be
Paul
shaking
Morrow.
in his boots.
Paul Morrow, I respect him tremendously. We may have difference of opinion, but I respect him. But we're going to be on again, and that's going to be 3 to 4. So I'm going to be missing the afternoon. So we have no one here to anchor the afternoon. So all of you are going to have to anchor the afternoon show for us, okay? And then maybe I can get on. I can get on. Right after that. But assuming. But
could not be in better hands. Couldn't be in better hands.
Yeah, well, better hands than all of our folks, right? Than all of our folks here. Okay.
So, and you're right. It may be Friday. Maybe over at 3-ish. I mean, who knows? But yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. But I'll be with you through lunch, and Michael may stop on his way to Pittsburgh. To lunch. I think that's beyond the ken of what he should be doing. He went to Portugal, Madeleine McCann, and look what happened. They reopened the investigation. He got off the plane and he spent 2 days in Dedham, and then he drove down here and covered me while I was out. And
you know what? Thank you for that. But you know how that worked out. Remember, originally the plan was I was going today and tomorrow, yes. But I had another work assignment tomorrow that I said I got to adjust things. I end up going Tuesday and Wednesday when there's testimony. So everything works out.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Olivia, I would love it. Yeah, message me. We'll try to work it out.
Sad, my schedule hasn't lined up recently. I'll message you guys. Good. Yeah. That'd be great.
And Olivia, you know what I want to know? I want to know if the defense is going to address this whole 1162-2 as to where this happened, or they're just going to go with no collision. Because as we know, we just saw on the videos that were played for Barrows, the Officer Barrows, there's a 3-point turn to get onto the truck, and that's in Dighton. That's not back at 34 Fairview. So there we go.
To get on the trailer, it was right. I think my personal opinion on the whole 1162-2 gets a little confusing. Where they pin that, the fact that there are so many other quote triggering events. Right. So many things can trigger that. I just think it's a bunch of garbage. I can't rely on.
I agree, but I don't know what that jury's thinking.
I don't either. They need one of these.
They need us. They need us in the court. And Olivia, yes, there's a heart. We love you. We love you. We retweet you. We follow you.
So smart. That's such smart stuff.
Yeah, and if you don't follow Olivia, you must follow Olivia. She's been on our show, and hopefully we can try to work out something for Friday and explain to those, because everyone talks about trying cases in social media, and we do have a lot of cross-examination going on what people know in social media. But it's important to get that out there, because there's so many lies out there that unless people like you and I are telling the truth, about what the burden of proof is, that the defense has no burden of proof here, and what the actual testimony was. You don't want any information to somehow seep into the sleep of the jurors. That's false.
Yep. And we're just here to observe and report. That's it. Okay.
That's us. Okay, partner.
Let's wrap it up. And tomorrow, I think we've got our marching orders. I will get up bright and early and do that little thing. And then we'll have that premiere tomorrow night. Kind of a nice day for everybody to take a breath. We'll sprinkle some of our stuff throughout the day, I think.
Right.
to keep everybody in touch with what's going on. And then back at it full speed on Friday. And next week, we could be looking at the rebuttal case and almost the end of this trial. So
Yeah. So, but before you go, because I know Michael Bryant didn't do this, please hit that like button. Okay. That like button, the share button, the subscribe button. Okay. Olivia, I'm going to keep putting Olivia on. They should call Garrett Wing. He's incredible and very compelling. Will make a great expert. I think the jury would love. Yeah, I think they can't really wait. They can't assume they can call him the rebuttal.
No.
They can't. And maybe that's what you do. You call the forensic pathologist. You call you call Garrett Wing first, or you call the forensic pathologist first, is what I would do. Then call Garrett Wing second. I would call him after the forensic pathologist. And finish with the ACAs. If you can't get the new opinion by Derek Elliott, finish with the ACAs. That's what I would do. Finish with, we called, by the way, the dental was working on me today. The dental hygienist was working on me today. Her favorite witness, by the way, were twofold. She loved Marie Russell. She loved Barrows, but she really loved Dashboard Daddy, as we have named him, Matthew DeSogra.
DeSogra,
okay? DeSogra.
Again, those are all defense witnesses.
All defense witnesses. Yeah, she didn't like the Commonwealth witnesses. She loved all the defense witnesses. Okay, hit the like.
Yep,
share,
do that.
Subscribe, notify, go to our YouTube page, look at Michael's clips that he put on, the interview with Aiden. Who else did you interview?
Esty at the very end.
Esty at the very end.
Karen Reed in between.
And Karen Reed in between. All right. And they all know you, Michael. Why? Because you're a star, because you sued the Commonwealth. You sued, you actually sued, as we said, you sued. You sued the power.
The power, that's right.
Power.
Speak truth to power.
And you now are the power. By the way, Olivia, before he goes, says Ellington looked at activity on Karen and John's phones after they were in the police custody, aka tampering. And didn't they lose Karen Reed's information, Olivia, too? They lost slides, they lost all sorts of stuff.
And what the Commonwealth is saying that is this supplemental report is not relying on anything new, therefore it's not appropriate. That's why they're trying to get it knocked out. Whatever is in that report was in there before and should have been included in the March 3rd report. So anyway, that's all going to work itself out.
Then it's not a surprise. All right. All right.
Okay.
We're going to let you all go. Olivia, we love you. We love all of you, everyone here. But please go hit that like and share and subscribe button.
We'll see you next time. Try to do the right thing.
From the stars.